This video is brought to you in collaboration with wowhead.com. Hello everyone! The Dark Heart has been stolen away by the Ethereals, which has our Xal'atath quite upset, but why? What is this artifact? Where did it come from? Why is it so important? Let's dive into what we know about the Dark Heart.
You gave it to the Ethereals?
It can suck, it can store, it can blast you away. It can be shattered by an arrow and repaired with black blood and Kashemite. That on a surface level is what we know about the Dark Heart. But it has also been described as a prototype of the Dragon Soul, which is a really good place to look at, as there are quite a few similarities to be found between these two relics. Way back in time, we're talking over 10,000 years ago, Azshara and her followers are busy summoning in the demonic forces of the Burning Legion, and a big old war over the fate of Azeroth played out. You'd have resistance rise up, trying to stop the Queen from ultimately bringing in the Dark Tide to Sargeras. And amongst Azeroth's defenders, there were the dragons and the dragon aspects. They've been empowered to save the world from the threat of Gallywix. We'll dive deeper into him later, but Keeper Tyr and the other keepers, they knew that Azeroth could use all the help it could get to keep her safe. And so, they called upon their creators, the Titans, to empower these proto-dragons, turn them into full-blown dragons. But what they didn't know was that Neltharion, the now black dragon aspect of Earth, he'd already heard the voices of the old gods.
Your friends will abandon you.
The gods locked away when the Titans and the Keepers brought order to Azeroth. And now, even stronger connected to the Earth, one can only imagine how insistent the voices of the locked away old gods became, whispering to him, first, how worthless he was, how he couldn't do anything right. They had this behemoth crawling on the floor of his lair in desperation, even though he was quite the brilliant strategist. But in time, after breaking him enough, the voices started to change. Now they started to feed his ego. He should be the one ruling the dragons. Alexstrasza and Ysera should be his mates. The world should bow down before the might of Deathwing. He could use this war to his advantage, with the creation of the Dragon Soul. The voices whispered in his head as he moved through the huge cavern, where once they were but an occasional occurrence. Now they never ceased. Even in his sleep, he could not escape their presence. Not that he wanted to do so anymore. The huge black dragon had hurt him for so long that they were now a part of him, indistinguishable from his own twisted thoughts. The Night Elves will destroy the world. The well is out of control. No one can be trusted. They want your secrets, your power. Malygos would take what is yours. Alexstrasza seeks dominion over you. They are no better than the demons. They must be dealt with like the demons. Though he had the power to save everything, he had to be careful. If they discovered the truth too soon, it would mean calamity. They must not know its secrets until it is beyond their altering. He decided, it cannot be presented until the spell must be cast. I will not let them destroy my work. Neltharion had his flight capture some of the demons from the Legion's ranks and absorb their essence within his crafted artifacts. The captives had another purpose, a grand one that they, unfortunately, could never come to appreciate, and the Eredar was the last, the most significant. His innate magical abilities made him the key to fulfilling the first part of the Earth Warder's quest. It is time, the voices whispered. It is time. Yes, Neltharion answered absently. Time. The dragon raised one huge paw palm up and concentrated. Immediately, a golden aura flared to life in his palm, growing so brilliant that even the captive demon paused in his tirades to stare at what Neltharion had summoned to him. The tiny disc was as golden as the aura that had preceded its coming, but otherwise, it was an astoundingly simple-looking piece. It would not have even quite filled the hand of a much smaller creature, say, a night elf for instance. The disc resembled a large, featureless gold coin with rounded edges and a gleaming, untarnished shell. Its very unassuming appearance was all by Neltharion's design. If the talisman was to perform its task properly, it had to seem entirely innocent, harmless. He held it toward the warlock, letting the editor see what awaited him. The demon, however, appeared quite unimpressed. He stared from the disc to the dragon, mockery filling his eyes. Neltharion noted the reaction. It pleased him that the editor did not recognize the strength of the disc. That meant that others would also fail to realize the truth until it was too late. The way that the artifact sucks in the editor is quite gruesome. And more to the point is that the relic has the ability to absorb and store away power. Something it does later with the powers of the dragon aspects, as Neltharion is able to convince them to give up a portion of their powers and store it within the disc.
It is done. All have given that which must be given. I now seal the dragon's soul forever.
That terrible glow. Should that be?
For it to be as it must, yes.
It is a weapon like no other. It must be like no other.
That way, they could combine their powers and create the relic that would save Azeroth, win them the war, blast away the demons, and anything they could imagine. It's a good deal, except for the part where Deathwing is listening to the old gods. He did not give up a portion of his powers, and eventually, he did use the disc against the demons. But then he turned on the others, turned on the Night Elf defenders, and even his fellow dragons. The magic and power the disc contained, it made it near impossible to overcome. The disc, although perfect in Neltharion's mind, it was not indestructible though. It got damaged while using, and Deathwing demanded answers from the goblins who'd helped him create it. "Meklo, see this." The Earthwarder brought his huge paw close so that the goblin could study the disc. Meklo squinted, making a tsk sound. Such crosswork, and now marred. The design was flawless. "A skill of mine fell upon it, goblin. Explain why that should damage the invulnerable." "Blood too, I see." Meklo looked up, surveying Neltharion's injury for a moment before tsking again. "Of course, this makes perfect sense. My lord Neltharion, you were integral in the formation of the disc itself, yes?" "You were there, goblin. You know." "Yes. You created the matrix of its construction." The head goblin thought a moment more, then asked, "The others? They've given their essences? They're tied into the disc's matrix?" "Of course." "Ah, but you are not. You created the Dragon Soul matrix, formed it with your power and blood, but you are the only dragon not directly bound to it." The goblin grinned, showing pointed yellow teeth. "That makes you its only weakness, my lord. The scale, your blood, any part of you has the capability of destroying the dragon soul. You could crush the disc with ease, I imagine." Meklo made a squashing gesture with his index finger and thumb. The Earthwarder's eyes grew monstrous to behold, even for the goblin. "I would never do such a thing." Of course not, babbled Meklo, groveling for Neltharion. "Which means that nothing can ever destroy it, eh?" The further smoldering within the dragon lessened. Neltharion's lips stretched back, revealing teeth larger than the goblin. "Yes, nothing. So, my dragon soul is invulnerable." "So long as you take no part in its destruction," the spindly figure dared remind him. "Which shall never happen." Neltharion gazed down at the damage wrought on the dragon soul. "But this must be repaired. The disc must be perfect again." "It will require what it did last time." The dragon scoffed. "You will have all of my blood that you need. It will be whole." And it would be restored, powerful, hidden away within the earth where no one could sense it. Despite that, it was still stolen by Malfurion Stormrage. He'd been spying on Deathwing, it's a long side story, but he knew where it was hidden, stole it, wielded it for a bit, throwing his being into the disc, whispering to open up a way for them to escape Nelfarion's lair, and the disc obliged. But then Broxigar told Malfurion to not use it anymore, for he could sense that it was evil, and Malfurion lost his mind, nearly killed the orc for even suggesting it. Very much like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings, the disc had a pull, a will of its own that only those with the strongest of wills could resist, which Malfurion did. Then his twin brother Illidan would get his hands on the disc and bring it to the palace. His whole double agent act that kinda backfired on him, as now the disc was being used by the Queen and her forces to empower their portal at the well and hasten Sargeras' arrival, just as the old gods had wanted. They saw Sargeras' coming, saw his arrival into Azeroth as a great way to escape their prisons. They wanted all of this to happen, which is why they didn't want Deathwing to reclaim what was stolen.
How dare you touch my creation! It is mine! Mine!
Neltharion! What have you done? You have doomed us all to the madness.
It is mine!
He is lost to us, sister. He is not.
The power of the soul is tearing him.
I will not be denied!
The old gods protect the soul.
They had done their job a little bit too well. Their puppet had become so obsessed with his created relic that they lost all control over him. The dragon soul was everything to him, but as we can see, Deathwing is blasted away, but the old gods' plans and the Legion's plans, they will not come to fruition. Azeroth's defenders, with the use of the Dragon Soul, they were able to reverse the portal and send the Legion back to where they came from. That just left dealing with an indestructible artifact, which they decided to hide away. But then millennia later, it was used by Deathwing again, manipulating the Orcish horde to claim it, use its powers to enslave the Queen of the Dragons, and force her Red Dragonflight to serve the horde. She would be liberated, and even the aspect powers that had been stored away within the disc for all this time, they would be returned by the mage Ronin, who used a skill of Deathwing to slice open the artifact and send back what was stolen. Even the chain that had held the Dragon Soul gave some modicum of power to those wielding it. Safe to say that the legacy of the Dragon Soul, the creation of this relic, it had played a massive part in the history of Warcraft. But then, this video is supposed to be about the Dark Heart. What is the Dark Heart? What parallels can we draw? What inspiration has been taken from the past?
We still don't know what this Dark Heart relic is capable of. But we do know it's in the hands of someone called the Harbinger.
The Dark Heart is allegedly one of Deathwing's prototypes, believed to have been similar to the Dragon Soul, also created with the aid of the goblins. Which is why, when it got broken, Xal'atath sought out the aid of Gallywix and the goblins to fix it. It was also hidden away within the earth, until Iridacron and the other Primal Incarnates returned to the Forbidden Reach in Dragonflight, and they immediately knew where to look for it.
They kept so many secrets. From us. And even from each other.
It is here. Neltharion's betrayal shattered their unity, left fissures in their hearts. Yet the pain he inflicted was only the beginning.
Avarice. His hidden laboratory.
One last secret, deep within the earth.
What's interesting is that Iridacron and Neltharion, they weren't friends or anything. Quite the opposite. both strategic masters fighting for their own sides, with Iridikron being super pissed at the forced order of the Titans and the transformation of proto-dragons into dragons. Meanwhile, Neltharion secretly listened to the whispers of the Void. It is that Void connection which gave him the upper hand against Raszageth and Iridikron, which the Primal Incarnate of Earth mocked him for. Throughout the book, War of the Scaleborn, there seems to be no connection for Iridikron with the Void, despite also being connected to the Earth. So the question is, how did he know about the location of the Dark Hearts? Doubtful that Neltharion told him, considering their rivalry. More likely is that Xal'atath told him. But then the question is, when? Was it in the days of the War of the Scaleborn? Was it closer to when Raszageth released them from the prisons within Dragonflight? Unknown. I'd imagine that it's after the release from the prison, but perhaps more interestingly, considering that the Dark Heart plays such a huge part in their plans right now, was Xal'atath planning this over 10,000 years ago? Was she one of the voices assaulting Deathwing in his lair, getting him to craft this device and then hide it away as some master plan or perhaps some backup plan? What is her relationship with the old gods, with the Void? How did she know about the Dark Hearts? There are definitely some gaps that they could fill in here, but what we do know is that at first, they claimed the Dark Hearts to get coordinates to Neltharion's hidden laboratory, which not only gave us a patch to play in, it also empowered Virak and it pushed the story forward. But then, the Dark Heart was given another purpose. With the aid of the Infinite Dragonflight, the Bronze Dragonflight's corrupted version, Iridikron traveled into the past to suck up the corruption of Galakrons. This behemoth lived in a time where proto-dragons were still proto-dragons. None of this dragon aspect business, but the influence of the Titans and their order that was brought to Azeroth, it was already there. As they defeated the Old Gods and the Black Empire, they brought order to the world, left the Keepers behind to take care of the planets. So how come Galakrons was able to become this mutated threat that not even the Keepers were fully prepared for? Well, we read in a report, I am pleased to say that the Halls of Infusion are now operational. Though the work of imbuing order magic into the Wellspring is only beginning, I remain optimistic that the process will prove effective. Already, we are detecting reduced levels of contamination. I hope your investigation into how Yogg-Saron compromised these living waters will yield answers. In the meantime, we can be assured that the evolution of another Galakrond will not be triggered by consuming unfiltered water. The Halls of Infusion were built to infuse the proto-dragons with order magic to transform them into dragons, which not everyone was happy with. Sometimes they were forced to join Team Order. And that anger and hatred has not vanished with the years. In more recent times, we still see people pissed at Keeper Tyr for tampering with the ancient wellspring beneath Tyrhold. Waters that once flowed with the eternal essence of Azeroth have been polluted by Order magic. And apparently also by Void magic, which triggered the evolution of Galakrond. The many-eyed beast grew larger and larger. Hungrier and hungrier, until he started to eat his own kind, and even that was not enough. He started to puke out what he had eaten, reanimate their lifeless forms and eat those again. Galakrond's hunger was insatiable, kinda like how the Void has been described all these years, and that has now been absorbed within the Dark Heart, which Iridikron then passed on to his ally Xal'atath.
All for some trinket Neltharion left behind.
The Dark Heart is no mere trinket. Its power now lies in the Harbinger's hands.
The Void cannot be trusted.
I trust its hunger. You know the Titans infected our world. And I will see them extinguished.
Where the Dragon Soul once absorbed powers like the essence of the demons or the aspect powers, the Dark Heart has sucked up Galakrond's corruption. I imagine powers rooted within the Void, as Yogg-Saron's been given credit for his corruption. But that was just the start, as we've seen Xal'atath go ham on the magical city of Dalaran and absorb all of its powers as well.
Khadgar.
We meet at last.
Xal'atath, I presume.
This city is home to such power. All squandered by the Kirin Tor. I'll put it to much better use.
Like hell you will.
A whole bunch of powerful relics and magics were stored within the city. So, are the powers of those relics now available to the wielder of the Dark Heart? Or does its original form not matter? Does it just all get devoured and turn into the void? Like Alleria believes? Who is to say? So far, we've seen the disc in action during the fight with Khadgar, where, once more, it absorbed his most powerful attacks, and then showed the Archmage what it can do by shooting out some massive void orbs, which knocked him out pretty quickly. But unlike the Dragon Soul, the Dark Heart can be hurt with more than just pieces of Deathwing.
Your hunger for violence is insatiable. You lured us here, unleashed us upon the Nerubians, all to fuel the Black Blood's power. My power. This stops now. Your determination delights me. But I have risen from the ashes of countless empires. I have survived ordeals you cannot comprehend. You cannot kill me. I'm not aiming at you. This changes nothing!
Apparently it did change a whole lot though, as her major focus became restoring the Dark Heart. Whatever Xal'atath has planned, the Dark Heart is apparently critical for it, which makes it all the weirder that she held it out like that for Alleria to shoot it, but that's neither here nor there. Gallywix was recruited to help her repair it, and like with how they needed Deathwing's blood to repair the Dragon Soul, restoration of the Dark Heart also came from blood. The black blood of the old gods, stabilized with the aid of Kashamite. With so many similarities, does that mean the Dark Heart also has an influence over its holder? Is there a voice calling out from within the relic, the One Ring style? Is that why Xal'atath so desperately wants to fix it? Is that why Gallywix held out on her? Maybe, but at the same time, we could also explain it by Xal'atath still needing it for the rest of her plans, and Gallywix being smart enough to realize what had happened to her former allies. All the same, neither one was gonna hold on to the relic. It is now in the possession of Ethereals. One small teaser has them look over something that is most likely their home world of Karesh, and then they stare deep within the relic. The Ethereals were a race of gifted scientists and magi, who originally dwelled on the world of Karesh. We now know that Karesh also housed a world soul similar to Azeroth, at least according to the Locust Walker, as their world also started to call out, just as ours did. Call out the coming of Dimensius, while the current history says that, in pursuit of knowledge and arcane technologies, they had doomed themselves and their home. The Karesh had torn open a rift into the void and drawn the wrath of a being known as Dimensius the All-Devouring. Of course, there is a lot of room for detail here. Was it perhaps Xal'atath manipulating and pushing the Karesh into opening up this rift? Was she perhaps one of the scientists, part of this team that brought in Dimensius in the first place, and for the sake of her people, she became like a silver surfer, offering world souls of other planets to Dimensius if he spared their worlds? Is Xal'atath perhaps what remained of Karesh? There's a whole lot that they could do here. Right now, it is said that Dimensius bathed the world in volatile energies that slowly tore it apart, and the Karesh had desperately tried to shield themselves from harm. Their efforts had only partially worked. Their magic had blocked Dimensius' shadowy power, but raw, arcane energy had shattered their physical bodies. All that remained were their souls, bristling with magic. From that day forward, these incorporeal creatures called themselves Ethereals, and their altered states proved to be a blessing in disguise, as their enhanced minds and magical abilities, it allowed the Ethereals to fight Dimensius and his limited forces to a standstill. Over the years, however, Dimensius eventually grew powerful enough to summon armies of fellow void creatures, forcing the Ethereals to flee into the twisting nether. If this is truly Karesh that we're looking at, then the planet did not do so well after the Ethereals were pushed back. But we have seen Ethereals with a more void-aligned affinity. Ethereals working for Xal'atath. Could the Ethereals that have stolen the Dark Heart also be working for Dimensius and the Void? Actively working against Xal'atath, who might have wanted to use the Dark Heart to fight against Dimensius? Or are the Ethereals trying to undo the corruption that befell their planets by having the Dark Heart suck out all the voids? Or do they want to suck up the world's soul and try to cleanse it on Azeroth? Honestly, the possibilities are vast. They can take this story into so many twists and turns. With limited knowledge on Xal'atath and the motivations, it is hard to say what role the Dark Heart is going to play. But if we compare it to the history of the Dragon Soul, then perhaps we'll soon see it floating above the Sunwell as its powers are being used to create a massive gateway to bring in the Dark Lord of the Void, thrust all of Azeroth into darkness. But again, that's very much to be revealed. With that, I hope you enjoyed a bit of a rundown on what we know of the Dark Heart and the Dragon Soul. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. So if you want to read the transcripts on all the things that we talked about today, then make sure to check out the related WoW article linked in the description down below. And until next time, see ya!